What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing another weapon breakdown for Battlefield 2042, this time covering probably my own personal favourite weapon in the entire game, which is the SWS-10. In these weapon breakdowns, we're going to go through a bunch of stats that you guys need to know, such as the rounds per minute, reload times, bullet velocity, damage over distance, bullets to kill over distance, and time to kill over distance as well. On top of those stats, we'll then go over 3 unique loadouts that I've crafted for specific playstyles, for those of you guys who aren't 100% sure on which attachments to use. Before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, as there's going to be plenty more content like this on the way in 2022. With that being said though, guys, let's get stuck right into my weapon breakdown for the SWS-10. So the SWS is obviously classed as a sniper rifle, and this is one of the weapons that you have unlocked when you first fire up the game. It has a magazine size of 10+1 in the chamber, and it fires at a rate of 50 rounds per minute, which is the fastest out of the 3 snipers in 2042. Now, for its reload time, it takes 2.8 seconds for a tactical reload, which is when you manually reload it, or it has an empty reload time of 4.8 seconds, which is when it automatically reloads after running out of bullets. Obviously, that is a pretty drastic difference there, almost doubling the reload time, and so it's definitely worth trying to always reload it when there's at least one shot left at a minimum, rather than letting it do the empty reload. As for the velocity, it sends its ammunition down range at 760 meters per second, which is smack bang in the middle of the 3 snipers, so it's not quite as useful at super long range compared to the DXR, but it is much better at range than the NTW. Now, getting into the more detailed stats for the SWS, keep in mind that these values are all based off of body shots, and when it comes to snipers, headshots actually have a 4 times multiplier rather than the 2 times multiplier like most of the other weapon classes, so any value that you see in these graphs are actually just a quarter of the damage when you land them to the head rather than the torso or the limbs, so it goes without saying that headshots with a sniper are absolutely critical. The SWS-10 deals 110 damage per bullet up to 9 meters, so you can actually one-shot to the body within those 9 meters provided they aren't wearing armor, and then at 10 meters and beyond it drops down to 60 damage per shot. As for the bullets that it takes to kill over distance, it obviously takes 1 shot to kill up to 9 meters, and then at 10 meters and beyond it'll take 2 shots to the body to kill an enemy, and that can even drop down to 3 depending on your attachments in the range. Now, I usually cover the time to kill as well, but honestly with a sniper that stat is essentially redundant, so I'm going to be leaving that out of the sniper guides and possibly even the shotgun guides too. Time to kill really only makes sense for pretty much any automatic or semi-automatic weapons at the end of the day. Obviously these stats do vary quite a bit once you account for headshots and missed shots like I mentioned, but assuming you hit every shot to the body at these ranges, then these stats are accurate to that situation. But the key thing to emphasize here with it being a sniper is to always aim for the head, as that will deal 4 times the amount of damage than a body shot regardless of the range. Now, just like the time to kill, I do usually cover the recoil pattern with most other weapons, but again that is essentially redundant with the sniper. Don't get me wrong, they do actually have recoil patterns, but by the time you've actually bolted the weapon and gotten it back on target, the bullets will just go exactly where you're aiming. So yeah, not much point showing off the recoil pattern for the sniper since there is essentially none. Now, moving on, like I mentioned, I've actually crafted 3 different loadouts that I often like to use on the SWS depending on the mode or the map or just how I feel like playing in general. So if you're not 100% sure on what attachments to use, then hopefully this can give you a good starting point, and obviously these can be slightly altered and adjusted to your own preferences, so these are by no means set in stone. Also keep in mind that you can obviously bring 3 attachments per slot in the plus system, so technically you can bring all 3 of these loadouts along and change them on the fly. So the first loadout that I wanted to cover is what I like to call the quickscope build, and this one is really fun to use in any close quarter situations. Quickscoping in Battlefield is definitely much less effective than games like Call of Duty, seeing as you do have to land headshots still, but it is still possible and it's fun to try either way, so definitely give this one a crack if you guys feel confident in your sniping skills. For this sight I use the TV 2x scope simply because it reduces that zoom a little bit while also reducing your ADS speed, and those 2 in combination are obviously a perfect build for focusing on quickscoping. For the ammo I use the close combat rounds, which slightly reduces the effectiveness at range while increasing the rate of fire, and although it's not too much faster, it does just bolt the weapon a tad faster, meaning you can actually just shoot more often. For the underbarrel I use the LS1 laser sight, which just improves your hip fire accuracy. I do love to have a cheeky little no-scope attempt every now and then, so this is really only helpful if you do enjoy doing the same thing, but if not, then I would probably just say the rattlesnake-like grip is probably the better option. Lastly, for the barrel I use the shortened barrel, which again just slightly increases the rate of fire. It's almost not enough to even notice, but it will help you get off a few extra rounds per minute. Now, moving on to the second loadout that I wanted to cover, this one is the added range build. Obviously snipers are already built for range, but as I mentioned, the SWS isn't quite on par with the DXR at those long ranges, so I do bring these attachments along with me just to sort of cover myself if I get into a really long range snipe off or something like that. For the sight, I use the BKS 8x scope. This one is a personal favourite of mine as it has a nice clear sight and that tiny bit of extra zoom compared to the 6x, so just kind of help at those longer ranges. For the ammo, I use the high power rounds as they increase the bullet velocity of the weapon, which is essentially what this build is trying to achieve. For the underbarrel, I use the ADR bipod, which is great for mounting onto cover or even using when you're prone. Not that I really go prone all that often, to be honest, but yeah, it is still great to stop that idle sway and kind of just make your shots a bit more accurate if you are struggling to hit your targets. Lastly, for the barrel, I use the extended barrel as this just increases the velocity of the weapon yet again at the cost of a slightly slower rate of fire. Like I said, this build is definitely going to make the weapon a little bit more effective at range, not that snipers aren't already, but yeah, it'll just help your bullet velocity, meaning that you won't really need to lead your shots nearly as much as normal. Now, lastly, for the third loadout, this one is called the meta loadout, as I personally think this is the best loadout for the SWS in just an all-round type of situation. If I could only bring along one of these loadouts, this would easily be the one that I bring, and I pretty much run this loadout about 90% of the time. For the sight, I use the M11 6x scope. For me personally, this is my favourite scope for any of the snipers in the game. It has a perfect amount of zoom and a nice clear crosshair, other than maybe the red part, to be fair, but yeah, this is definitely my go-to scope. For the ammo, I use the extended mag as I do like having those few extra shots if I'm going to try and go for some nice multi-kills or anything like that, or just the regular ammo is a pretty solid option too. For the underbarrel, I use the rattlesnake light grip, which is just a grip that I've found to be the best on essentially any weapon in the game. And then lastly, for the barrel, I use the extended barrel once again, as this just helps with that velocity and just means I don't need to lead my shots nearly as much. Like I said, this is my personal favourite build for the SWS, and it's one that I'm running around with more often than not, so hopefully you guys enjoy this one as much as I do. So that is pretty much it for the SWS-10, guys. Personally, I really enjoy using this one, and like I said, it's probably my favourite weapon in the game. I love having a snipe in pretty much any shooter that I play, and although both of the other snipers are a heap of fun too, the speed of the SWS just works the most for me personally, as I do enjoy playing a little bit more aggressively at times. Now, up next, I'm going to be covering the DM7 for the marksman rifle class, but other than that, let me know what you guys want me to cover next, as I'm largely going to base them off what you guys want to see the most, so be sure to leave some recommendations down in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.